G-Man Boxing. Do you know what I mean? Every single live he donates. I see him on other lives donating. He's got the bag on it.
Alright people, review of the week time. Probably my favourite kind of series to record. Just pure talking boxing. That's what I like about it. There's pure talking boxing. And there is a lot to talk about. Mainly over the last few days. Last week was a pretty quiet week, it has to be said, in terms of news. There wasn't really much news breaking, to be honest with you. I mean, if it hadn't have been for fight week of Wilder Fury, jeez, I'd be clutching at straws to make videos, to be honest with you guys. I really would. There hadn't been much going, certainly in terms of the way of news. But fights, there's been many. Now, I wasn't around yesterday evening, so I didn't get a chance to watch I didn't watch it live, the DAZN card. I'll start with that actually, because Frank Warren, as some people may not know, had a show on last night as well in Birmingham. And judging, I don't think many people knew that was even on. It went up against Liam Smith versus Anthony Fowler, and that was a cracking fight. But I'll start with the card in a nutshell. One thing I want to talk about before I actually get into the card is it's an interesting one that Eddie Hearn said on Friday, because a lot of the talk was on about Shannon Courtney, and I will talk about that. That's coming up. But he was having a go at Joe Gallagher, was Eddie Hearn, because, and this to me is just typical Joe Gallagher. Like, really just, I don't really rate Joe Gallagher as a trainer, but as a manager, he is burning bridges left, right and centre, that guy. Because I was listening to a couple of interviews with Eddie Hearn. Now, it was mainly stemming from Shannon Courtney missing weight, but they were also talking about Natasha Jonas. Now, some people may be unaware, Natasha Jonas was meant to fight on this card. Okay, her opponent was TBA, so they had no opponent announced, certainly at least on BoxRec. But Eddie Hearn actually revealed in an interview, and Eddie Hearn was quite angry about this, was they had a plan to do a rematch between Natasha Jonas and Katie Taylor, as Eddie Hearn said, big money in December. They wanted an interim fight, so I think Eddie Hearn basically said, okay, no problem, we'll give you an interim fight. It's not going to be against anyone amazing, but kind of fringe world level. Alright, now apparently Eddie Hearn said they agreed on a purse, so the purse was already agreed upon, so Natasha Jonas would get X amount of money. So Eddie Hearn said, look, here's the list of the opponents. I believe one of them had fought, I think, Terry Harper and Katie Taylor. Can't remember the name, but he definitely said it was a former Katie Taylor opponent, probably one of her very early opponents. So, that's, decent. Not a massive risk on paper, but decent. Joe Gallagher comes across with 1-10, 2-11, and Eddie Hearn is like, no. And I'm paying you X amount of money, and you literally want to take a tomato can in there and knock them out and around and be gone. And as Eddie, and he's right. I can't argue with Eddie Hearn on this. Eddie Hearn said then he'll be the one who gets stick, because he's the one who they're saying, Jesus Eddie, why are you putting this fight on? It's crap. I can't argue with that. And that's typical. Like, Joe Gallagher's been known for saying some absolutely ridiculous things, and I think he said that Sky need to pay, this is back I think in 2019, Cam Smith the same amount of money that the World Boxing Super Series were paying. It's like, what? The guy, he won it, but he's still virtually unknown. What do you actually, Joe Gallagher, I get the impression he just wants to try and eat off any of these fighters. He's just trying to want to milk them like a cow for whatever bit of money he can get. And he always struck me as being, even years ago, even when he was with Scott Quigg and Anthony Crawler, he always struck me as being just the kind of, I don't know, just a very dishonest kind of character. I mean, as a trainer, it's the same thing over and over again. Let the opponent hit you and see if you can counter. That's it. Wait, he might tire out. That's it. But I just found that very interesting. And Eddie Hearn was very frustrated and angry. And I can't really blame him. Especially, imagine how you'd feel if you, imagine me, being a promoter. And say, for argument's sake, I have, let's just name someone, just say Daniel Dubois. In an alternate universe, I have him and I'm paying him, or Joshua Boazzi actually is a good example, because I think in part of his contract is that he gets, I think, over $100,000 per fight. So he obviously fought Ricardo Bolotniks on Fight Camp, earned every penny of that. So he did earned every penny of it. Imagine like you saying to Boazzi, okay, you're out next month. Here's your pay. You're gonna be on 100 grand, and he brings in a guy who's like 1 in 12. Imagine that. Imagine that you as a promoter, you'd be thinking, what the? I'm not doing that. I'm not paying you that much money to just go in there. Like, what the hell? You know, I'd be paying. Eddie Hearn be paying like him, Josh Boazzi, 100 grand for that fight, and that same journeyman could be out in a 4-rounder next week for a grand. You know, against someone who's, you know, making a grand from that show. So crazy from Eddie Hearn, or crazy from Joe Gallagher, I should say. I can understand why Eddie Hearn is upset about that. But let's talk about the card. Let's talk about the card in a nutshell. Kieran Conway versus JJ Metcalf. Very close competitive fight. JJ Metcalf, I suspect, if that Ted Cheeseman fight hadn't been as brutal, and it was a very tough fight and it ended very spectacularly, I suspect if it hadn't been as brutal, he would have won this fight, because Conway's okay, but I've always been impressed with JJ Metcalf. He's always impressed me, his strength, his tenacity, his punching power. But that Cheeseman fight would have took a lot out of anyone, especially the knockout. That was a bad knockout, and you know I remember them checking, you know, quite lengthy on JJ Metcalf, and for me they needed to, because that was a very bad knockout. So that was Kieran Conway, 10-rounder. You know, he was both guys coming off the back of a loss, so Conway moves on. There is still some fights there for Metcalf. I wonder, will he move up in weight? You know, because he's a bit like Tank Davis in a way, but he's just so heavily built. You know, he's very round. He looks very broad. I'd imagine he's, you know, fairly big in real life, like in, you know, real life outside, you know, the gym. So maybe he should look at going up a weight. Ted Cheeseman and Troy Williamson. Damn. You know, amazing to think that wasn't the... It's amazing, right? That fight on any night, if there was fights on, you know, in the UK, America, Germany, etc., you'd say Ted Cheeseman would be fight of the night in any of them shows, and it wasn't, because Fury Wilder was. Troy Williams, Ted Cheeseman, brilliant fight. Both guys had their moments of success. Both guys hurt the other opponent. Troy Williamson does come across as being a very big puncher. I can't think, was it Kieran Smith or something like that the guy's name was, he fought in his last fight, where he was actually getting outworked. Something Smith, I don't know if it was Kieran or what it was, but he was getting outworked with Troy Williamson, but he closed the show spectacularly. And in the 10th round against Cheeseman, he brutally knocked Ted Cheeseman out. I've said it once, I'll say it again, I worry about Ted Cheeseman, because for the last about 3 years nearly, he's been in tough fight after tough fight where he's taken a lot of abuse. And that knockout right there, that might have been a career finisher for Ted Cheeseman. It really might have. He released a statement on Instagram, and he kind of hinting at it. I don't know if he will or not. Maybe he'll move up in weight or something. But, you know, Ted Cheeseman, it was quite sad in a way seeing him get ironed out like that, because I like watching Ted Cheeseman fight. I do. It's a guilty pleasure. I like watching him fight, but I hate seeing him take so much abuse, because he is still quite young. He's only about 26, 27. Seems like he's been around for years, Ted Cheeseman. But it was a fantastic fight. Great performance from Troy Williams. It really was. You know, very big puncher. He's going to give a lot of the guys that weight a problem. You know, Troy Williams, his power. I wonder, is he still promoted by Frank Warren? Because I know his last fight was on a Queensbury card. I think it was on a Queensbury card anyway. I'm pretty sure it was. Or one of them MTK cards on IFL. It was one or the other. But Williams, we'll keep an eye on him. Shannon Courtenay. I watched Tyann Booth's video on this. Shannon Courtenay lost her title on the scale. She blamed that time of the month. She blamed seeing red. She said she's a woman and that's what happens. Don't say that, Shannon. You'll upset some like woke nutcase if you say that, because you know what they're like. But yeah, she lost quite clearly against Jamie Mitchell. Amazingly, she felt she won the fight. I watched a bit of that fight live with no commentary, because I was actually out with my friends, but I was still like just watching it on the zone while I was out with them, because that just happened to be on. I said I'll watch it, and I couldn't hear the commentary because it was in quite a loud space, and she looked like she was getting her head jabbed off. She looked like she was just getting outworked. I watched it this morning, and yep, she definitely lost. Quite clearly lost that fight. Amazingly, she thinks she won the fight. I believe she was like that with Rachel Ball when she beat Rachel Ball. Now, That fight was a bit different. Now, I thought Rachel Ball won that fight, but most people were kind of split because Matthew Macklin did an appalling job on, and he really did. That was one of the worst displays of biasness in a commentary I've ever seen. If you've ever watched Rachel Ball versus Matthew Macklin, that was one of the worst, most despicable displays of just sheer, just biasness in terms of a commentator. He literally gave Rachel Ball zero credit for anything she did, apart from the knockdown. So people were kind of split on that. And it was competitive, don't get me wrong, it was. But they were kind of split on that because Matthew Macklin just literally made it out as though Shannon Courtney was, walking on water. In this fight, it was a lot more clear. It was a lot more clear. I mean, Courtney, 2 rounds at max, I'd give her. Seriously, 2 rounds at max. She was completely outclassed in there. Jamie Mitchell, big up to her. She's coming into this fight 6-0, I should say, with 2 draws. And it was vacant for her only because obviously Shannon Courtney missed weight, and the minute she missed weight, she took a drink. So obviously wasn't even going to try. But yeah, Shannon Courtney is not a particularly likable character. I think she needs to humble herself. But she doesn't strike me as someone who really can grasp the concept of that. It's like there's no smoke without fire. Do you ever hear that saying? It's like, if you want to go and have your cake and eat, if you want to go and run your mouth, talk what, and just not even like Rachel Ball, even though I don't have that much time for Rachel Ball, not just be like saying, I live in your head rent free, or I can't give you any credit, and this, that, and the other. It's like, what? And then you're saying you want the comment section turned off, and it's like, what? So you'll give it, but if someone even what? I think she needs to learn to humble herself. But I can't see how. I think I'm not wishing this on her, but I think the only way you'll see it is if she gets ironed out. And I'm not saying I'm wishing that on her. What I'm saying is, if she was to lose but just get completely ironed out, I think that might be the humbling. But I'm not saying I'm wishing that on her. I'm just saying that might be what is needed for her to be humbled, because I just can't see it. If she clearly lost this fight, thought she won. Madness. Main event, Liam Smith versus Anthony Fowler. Great fight again. This whole card was really good. It was a really good, enjoyable card. I really thoroughly enjoyed this card. So Liam Smith stopped Anthony Fowler in 8 rounds. Anthony Fowler had some success early on. Was definitely doing so. Bit like, it actually was very similar. Actually, it was, when I think about it, it was very similar to Scott Fitzgerald. Anthony Fowler starting very strong, using his jab. The fight was fought at a bit of a frantic pace. Now, against Fitzgerald lost the first couple of rounds to Anthony Fowler, and Fowler started to tire a bit as the fight progressed. In this fight, Liam Smith just kind of had a bad start, he did, and he was hurt in the 3rd round. And what he did was he just decided, okay, let's just proper go and have a scrap, and let's get the pace up. So the pace of the fight started moving up a bit. Anthony Fowler couldn't keep up. And Anthony Fowler was getting hit a lot. Was hit with a very, very good right hand in the 5th round. I have to say, I'm surprised he actually was able to get through that 5th round. Showed very good heart, because that was a heavy knockdown. Very, very heavy knockdown. And at that stage, he was already getting a bit tired. So for him to get through that, obviously in the 8th round, it was a left hook, I believe, that dropped him. And yeah, he didn't complain about the referee stopping the fight. I think he knew at that stage, even if Howard Foster let it go on, it was a matter of time. Because at the end of the day, he just didn't have anything left. It was, I think, I said this before, I'll say it again. I just thought at the time when this was announced that it was just a case of too much too soon. Having said that, the closer I got to it, and seeing Liam Smith not look the best on the scales, I kind of thought, maybe Fowler might just be able to nick this if he invests in Liam Smith's body, and if Liam Smith is really struggling. But not the case. Liam Smith, fantastic performance. Liam Smith's still a very, very good fighter. I mean, his record is 30-3, should be 30-2. I felt he was very hard done by in that fight over in Russia. I felt he won that fight. He didn't get the decision. And if you take that out of the equation, his other 2 losses, world title fights, Jaime Munguia, went the distance with him, which most people don't go the distance with Jaime Munguia. Munguia is very relentless, which is and he won some good rounds. That was actually a competitive fight against Munguia, make no mistake about that. And obviously Canelo, it's Canelo. It's Canelo. And he gave, even though he got stopped and Callum didn't, he definitely tried more than Callum Smith did. You know, Liam Smith, although Callum has had the better career, although they're both world champions, but you would say Callum has had the better career. Liam Smith, for my money, is the best of the Smith brothers. He's the man of the bunch. That's the best way to describe him. He's the man. You know, he is the alpha of those brothers because he is the one who will come to fight. He'll fight anyone. You know, big up to Liam Smith. And well done. It was a fantastic. But that whole card was just brilliant. It really was. Now, there was a few fights on the Frank Warren show that were interesting. Callum Johnson had a majority decision win against Sever Imorlev. Never heard of him at all. But he was 24-2. In his last 6 fights, he was 4-2 in his last 6 fights. So not exactly ideal. This was for WBO Global Light Heavyweight World Title. It's just like a tricket title. Majority decision. I haven't actually seen it, but Callum Johnson is 36 now. I wonder, are we starting to see the end of Callum Johnson? I wonder if his best year is well and truly gone. It's been a shame because Callum Johnson has always had a lot of talent. As far as I was concerned, he was a world level fighter a few years ago. It's just been inactivity. Has been his biggest problem. It's been his biggest problem, inactivity. I mean, when he fought Beterbiev, I think in 18, 19 months, he'd had 1 round of boxing, and that was against Buglioni. That's not good. That's not good if you want to cut it at world level. And even then, he did a great performance against Artur Beterbiev. Very good. And that the headline act on that card was Brad Foster against Jason Cunningham. Jason Cunningham is like another Maxie Hughes. You know, a guy who took fights on short notice, was the away fight. Remember, he got absolutely outboxed by Michael Conlon a few years ago. I think that was for a Commonwealth title, if memory serves me. And, you know, there was not really much thought thereafter. But he's come back. He had that brilliant win over Gamaliel Fight, where he really did. He looked like Adonis Stevenson in there, the amount of times he dropped Gamaliel Fight. And again, he goes and takes the O of Brad Foster. He is now the European, Commonwealth and British super bantamweight champion. So a massive big up to him. Well done. That's very good. They're both managed by Steffi Bull. You know, him and Maxie Hughes. So obviously Steffi Bull is doing some good work for his fighters. Whatever he's doing, and he's not training a lot of them. So Steffi Bull does train. And if I've one criticism about Steffi Bull is that he's a very brave corner man. He lets a lot of fights go on too long, in my opinion. But he's also a manager. And he's been managing, and obviously he's given, I don't know how he does it, don't know what he does in terms of managing, but whatever he's doing, he's obviously giving his fighters a lot more time to prepare. Maybe I don't know how he's helping them, but he's doing something. His fighters have been improving a lot, so big up to him, big up to Jason Cunningham. That was the fights in the UK. Now, I only covered 3 fights last night. I actually fell asleep for a bit during the FA Ajagba Frank Sanchez fight, but I saw enough of that to be able to talk about it, and I'll talk about that now. Ajagba versus Sanchez. Sanchez's speed was definitely causing Ajagba problems. He was very gun shy. You know, I did catch the end of the fight. I basically caught the first 3 rounds. I caught the round where he got dropped, and then I fell asleep until about round 10. That's just the way it went. But in the 10th round, Ajagba's cornermen were really animated. They were saying, they were swearing, you gotta let your hands go. You're not letting your hands go. You're giving this fight away. Ajagba, I think he felt Frank Sanchez's power because Frank Sanchez does have good punching power, and I think it was the speed. I think it's one thing for a guy to have punching power, but when they have punching power and speed and good timing, which Frank Sanchez has, and he's moving at different angles, you're just thinking to yourself, I could let my hands go, but the shots are coming quick, they're coming sudden, and they're hard. It's not like, you know, you're with someone who's just a clubber, who, you know, yeah, he's heavy-handed, but I'm seeing the shots coming, so I don't mind. I know if I do this, he's going to do this. Frank Sanchez was the superior boxer, and he took FA Ajagba's O. It's not the end of the world for Ajagba. Back to the drawing board, you know. This is the good thing about a fight like this, right? The people just, it drives me crazy. Oh, he's lost. No, he's not. How is it, like, some of the greatest fighters of all time have lost? It's just such an annoying misconception about boxing that if you lose your O, you're terrible. You're not. You're far from it. You know? You're far from it. So Ajagba's lost. Yep, back to the drawing board. You know, he did say himself by his own admission, I think at the end of last year, or start of last year, that he needs a good 2 years before he should be ready to go, in at world level. Okay, maybe he needs another year on top of that, but nevertheless, he can still improve, and he will have learned from this fight from Frank Sanchez. In my opinion, he will have, and I think it'll improve him. A loss is not the end of the world. And I think boxing needs to move away from that. They really, truly do. Look at Jason Cunningham, 6 losses, and he's European and Commonwealth and British champion. 6 losses. Right? If you wanted to just chuck him under the bus after 1 loss, he would never have even got, even Clyde would have probably never even got an area title. So a lot of fighters will take L's. It happens. It's not the end of the world. And as I said, it's better to lose it here in a fight against an unbeaten prospect, like a fellow unbeaten prospect, than to go in against a journeyman who's 1-50 and get knocked out in the first round. That's not a good way. That would be raising my eyebrows. But losing to Frank Sanchez on points, no shame in that. He will have learned stuff from that. Victor Vickhurst got his win against Mike Marshall. I suspected Victor Vickhurst would have no real trouble with him, because I think I said it in my review of the card that he's basically a light heavyweight / super middleweight who's eating his way to heavyweight. Shouldn't be anywhere near that weight. And I think, he got stopped in a round at cruiserweight about 5 years ago, so he shouldn't have been anywhere near heavyweight, and he definitely looked unnatural at heavyweight, let's put it like that. So that was Victor Vickhurst. Victor Vickhurst is an interesting watch, Ukrainian prospect. Jared Anderson, talked about him, but I'll go in a bit more. Fantastic fighter. I am so excited to watch his career progress. So excited for Jared Anderson's career. I think he is gonna... I'd be very surprised if he doesn't win a world title. Very surprised in the next 5 years. I'll be shocked. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. Rosie Ramirez, he got a win over Orlando Gonzalez Ruiz. He's definitely looking a lot better than he did in his pro debut. Shaky start to the pro career, but he's starting to find his feet, I believe. J-Rock took an L against Vladimir Hernandez, and I'll be frank, he lost that fight. He did, in my opinion. He had a couple of good rounds. I'll make no mistake, he did have a couple of good rounds, but he looked away at sea for most of it. Hernandez just outworked him, simple as. I think the inactivity, I think that maybe not having full confidence in his chin, but I think the fact that 20 odd months out of the ring really hindered him. I think that's I think that really hindered J-Rock, and I think that maybe, as soon as the fight started, I was like, this guy's game. This Hernandez guy, I was like, this guy's game. J-Rock better be on it. And towards the end of the fight, he really was hanging on. I think Andre Ward said it on commentary. The head knows what it wants to do, but the body just won't do it. And I think that was J-Rock's problem in that fight. So, excellent performance. Back to the drawing board for J-Rock at this stage. Be interesting to see that Gonzalez guy against someone like Erickson Lubin. Erickson Lubin's a good fighter. Very good fighter. Edgar Berlanga. I actually watched this fight live. And it was fun to watch. It really was. I didn't do a review of it because I was knackered, basically. But I watched this fight live against Marcelo Esteban Caraces, I think is how you pronounce it. I heard it enough times last night. I really didn't expect Berlanga to be the one to get dropped in this fight. Caraces. I'm probably butchering that name. Apologies. Obviously, we know about him and Billy Joe. Went the 11 rounds, got stopped by Billy Joe. But I thought he was winning that fight, personally. And in this fight, he was definitely fiddling Berlanga around. He really knew how to survive. He was giving him a few angles. He was making it difficult for him in there. And he dropped Berlanga in the 9th round. And, his opponent, I'm just going to say opponent because I don't want to butcher it again, not a noted puncher. And the difference in terms of body mass was apparent. His opponent was career middleweight. Even before Billy Joe was career middleweight. Berlanga, big super middleweight. But, I was surprised. I was surprised to see him go down now, I have to say. I really was. And, his opponent was hurt a few times but never touched down. Berlanga will have learned so much in his last 2 fights. Going 8 rounds with, is it Devon Williamson or Desmond Williamson or something like that his name is. and this going the full 10 and getting dropped, because at least it could show we can come back from a bit of adversity. So Edgar Berlanga, will keep an eye on him. He definitely does have, you can tell just by the way, just by the sound of his shots, natural puncher. Definitely has natural power there. Helenius versus Kownacki. Done a review on that. Oh, but poor Adam Kownacki. He got an app. And I'm looking at the score. I didn't know what the scorecards. Helenius had won every round on every scorecard. I think there was there was a 10-8 round for the point. I was going to say, I thought one of the judges gave a 10-8 round. I forgot there was a point deducted. Yeah, Kownacki was, to be fair, they could have stopped that fight in the 5th round, because Kownacki was taking an absolute beating from Helenius. I've never seen Helenius looking this confident. Where was this Helenius 10 years ago? Because this Helenius 10 years ago could have been useful in the heavyweight division. Because there was once a time where Helenius was, I think, mandatory for Klitschko with the WBO several years ago, many years ago now actually, but you wouldn't have picked Helenius back then, and for obvious reasons, but he's looking a lot better now at 37. It's just, I believe his best days are behind him. Where was this Helenius 10 years ago? We could have had an interesting addition to the heavyweight division with this guy 10 years ago. Popping his jab out, moving, going in looking for... Helenius' punches are so heavy. Like, look, I'd be amazed if Kownacki doesn't have serious damage, like to the orbital bone or something like that. I'd be very surprised. And obviously we move on to the main event, Fury Wilder. Oh boy, where do I even start with this? Just a brilliant fight. Like, I've done a video on it, done another one today. I've already recorded before starting this, and yeah, just a fantastic fight in general. Fury Wilder, I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I think that's not much else you can say. In terms of other news that's kind of going on in the world of boxing that I can use to kind of relate to that fight, Dylan White has been named as mandatory challenger if he wins. So if Dylan White wins against Otto Wallin, he is therefore mandatory. So he will be mandatory challenger for Tyson Fury. We'll get Dylan White for it. And there's no real way around it, because Joshua and Usyk are probably going to have their rematch at some stage next year, maybe March or April time, give or take. So Fury against White, February, March, April, May next year, I'm all for it. You'd think they might try and do it in the UK potentially. I know Frank Warren will probably be pushing for that, because that's a stadium filler. No doubt in my mind, that's a stadium filler if they do that in the UK. So watch the space. That's going to look, that'll be a good fight. Dylan White has to get by Otto Wallin. It's no foregone conclusion. I think Dylan White, I wouldn't be shocked, right, if Dylan White gets through Otto Wallin and looks bad doing it, and it maybe makes the public really not want to see Fury versus White. They'll just think, oh, he looked terrible again. Because Wallin, I don't think he's really world level, solid, above European level. He's awkward. He's a awkward southpaw, and I think he might just mess Dylan White around. I think Dylan White will win, but I think he just might mess Dylan White around and just, I don't think we'll see. I'm surprised. I really am that he's taken this fight. I'm happy, don't get me wrong, but I'm just surprised in the sense of, like, Wallin is a much liver opponent than Chris Arreola, David Avanesian has signed a multi-fight deal with Frank Warren. That's interesting. He was only fighting on Boxer there the other week. Was it? Yeah, last week. So that's interesting. That's really interesting. Frank Warren has David Avanesian. I suspect that makes him versus Conor Benn even harder now, unfortunately, at this stage. So, look, it is what it is. I do enjoy David Avanesian, though, I have to say so. Who does he have at 147? Maxwell? Is Sam Maxwell 147 or is he 140? I think he's 140, isn't he? Yeah, who does Frank Warren have that he could maybe potentially match him with at 147 when I think about it? It's not really many. So look, we'll see how that goes. Eubank Jr. will now fight this coming week against his opponent he's meant to fight. That's not the same opponent. Is it? Maybe it is. I thought the name was different. Maybe it is the same opponent. Maybe I'm just reading the name wrong. But he's fighting this week on the Hughie Fury Savannah Marshall card. And I look forward to that card, actually. I like watching Savannah Marshall. She's very good to watch. Has Eubank Jr. on it, Lewis Whitson, Hughie Fury. That's gonna be a horrible fight. Hughie Fury versus Christian Hammer. That's gonna be oh my god, that's gonna be an awful fight. I'm just telling you, that's gonna be a stinker. This is the bit I find very interesting here. Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant. All right. Will be shown live on BT Sport pay-per-view. 20 quid. £19.95 actually to be exact. That's interesting. So it's going to be on pay-per-view here in the UK and Ireland on BT Sport. So not on DAZN, not on Sky, and it's on pay-per-view. Bit disappointed with that, I have to say. I was kind of hoping that, although I knew it wasn't going to be on DAZN in America, that maybe for, you know, people in the UK and Ireland, they might, you know, decide, okay, we'll put a bid in and we'll get it on DAZN over here for us. Fortunately, we're going to have to, and I will pay for it. I probably will anyway, for the Canelo card. I normally buy good pay-per-views if I enjoy it. Like if I didn't pay for the pay-per-view last night though, I have to say, I'll admit that. But I'll probably consider buying that. You know, I want to see Undisputed. I'll watch that. It's kind of a bit annoying that like it's pay-per-view. Like I know I shouldn't say, like I'm complaining about like 20 quid and people in America have to pay like probably about 70, 80. So maybe actually I'll shut up because you just have to pay a lot more for anyone watching America. So I won't go in. I'll leave it at that. And obviously in terms of fights that have been announced last week, Tank Davis, Rolly Romero. Oh boy, it's going to be a fun little build-up, but I think that Tank Davis, if you wanted someone to look good against for Tank Davis, Rolly Romero is that, because he is going to get absolutely battered against Tank Davis. It'll be a fun little build-up. Rolly Ramirez is fun, or Romero I should say is fun, but yeah, he's very limited. You know, he's just big. He's a big target to hit. He marauds forward. He is going to get lit up by Tank Davis. Absolutely lit up. So I've been talking probably for the best part of a half hour now, haven't I? It's been a while. Because I was looking at my phone. They put that on flight mode. I don't want any static. And it was like 20 past 10 in the evening. That's what time it is now anyway. And now it's 20 to 11. And I think I started before that, so I don't want this to go over a half hour. And big up to anyone who did listen if it is over a half hour, so big up to yourselves. But yeah, I've been talking for a while, so I'm going to leave it there. Hope you enjoyed it. If you could, smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't, hit the notification bell. All that stuff does really help. Really does help the channel out. You'd be surprised. You know, I'm halfway to 6k. Can we do it by Christmas? I'd effing love that. But I'll leave that there. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Hope you all having a good Monday. You know, hope something good happens for everyone this week. We all get some good news. Something good happens for anyone. Look, I'm happy for everyone. I hope you do. For now, I'll leave you with that. Subscribe again if you haven't already. Hit the like button, helps your boy out. Have a great day. Have a good week. Peace, people.